Sure, we are up and running. There you go. Welcome to Peace Mindedly Podcast, a show featuring peaceful bridge makers. You're watching this show from my personal channel, Peace Talk with Sarah, and also from Goldtune News channel on YouTube. And the same program is available on goldtune.com. I am super excited about today's program because I wonder if you have a son. So the question is, do you have a son? Or the other question that is I mean, one of the things that I am so fascinated is, do you wish your mother-in-law taught a few important things about feminism to your husband, or do you know feminism in what is feminism and who are feminists? And then, have you lived in a society, in a patriarchal, in a masculine society where you have been put down as a woman? About these subjects and much more, we have absolutely perfect guest that I love her book. So Sonora Jha is the author of How to Raise a Feminist Son, Motherhood, Masculinity, and the Making of My Family. Sonora is an essayist, novelist, researcher, and professor at Seattle University. She grew up in Mumbai in India, and she was chief of the Metropolitan Bureau of the Times of India and also editor for the East magazine in Singapore. Sonora's op-eds and essays has appeared on many places, the New York Times, the Seattle Times, Establishment, and several anthologies. She will talk to us from her Seattle home office, and I am super excited. Hello, Sonora.
Hello, Sarah. So lovely to be here in conversation with you.
Absolutely, pleasure is mine. Okay, Sonora, I would love to know what happened, why you decided to write this book.
Oh, that's a great question. So I grew up as a feminist, although I didn't hear of the term until I was about 2021. But there was always this sense of something that didn't feel quite right growing up in a patriarchal society like India, which really I think patriarchy now is across the globe. But so I was kind of living a feminist life and hadn't really thought of writing the book until my son was kind of grown up and going to college. And I realized that I had actually made sort of a pledge to myself to raise the kind of boy or man that I still hadn't encountered in my life. So it was really a personal journey. And then when I started to write, I'd written a novel and then I started to write a memoir, and I couldn't quite get to the theme of the memoir, but I would keep writing these essays, these political op-eds and essays about masculinity, the Me Too movement, etc. And those would get a lot of feedback, and a lot of people would say, yes, we need to have these conversations about how we need to raise our boys to be different. And so it sort of connected with this theme of how I had raised my son and what was really an important conversation we needed in society. And so then it became this collection of essays as memoir that was also a conversation with society, but also all these personal narratives of mine.
Yes, you just mentioned that when you were a feminist and then you were raising your son, you just felt this kind of urge to pledge towards this idea. So here's my question. I have a lovely fair-minded husband, and I do enjoy our conversation all the time. But when I was reading the book, I really wished that my mother-in-law would teach some of those concepts to my husband. So my question is somehow when I was just reading, I was thinking, wouldn't the author, you, ever thought about, I wish my ex knew about these things and put me in less pain?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, right, I have two exes in terms of two ex-husbands. Both of them were wonderful men, but one of the things I realized, which I didn't want for my son, was the trap of masculinity, the trap of traditional masculinity, right? So they've been raised in this way where I don't think they've been called on to do better by either their mothers, or, like, why blame the mothers alone? All of society, right? Of the masculine role models that they had, etc. There were so many moments where I felt like, wait, you love me, but you're not able to get over this one thing, right? You're not able to get over your emotional journey, or make that emotional leap, and or you're not able to really stand in solidarity with feminism and with people of color. And you can do it. If not you, then who? You are a man, you have so much power in the world, whether you're an Indian man in India, whether you're a white man in the US. These were my two husbands. And I realized I don't want my son to be similarly thwarted in his own masculinity. I want him to expect better from himself. And I hope to one day have a daughter-in-law that says, yes, you nailed it, so that we'll know, we'll know
Yes.
when there's a daughter-in-law who says, okay, thank you.
I wonder why is that? Why do we encourage men of not showing feeling or not showing emotions? Why it's been considered weak?
Mm. I mean, I think, and a lot of feminists have argued that I think in the past it made sense, right? Evolution or something we might have needed these brave men to go kill tigers or whatever and bring them, and maybe they need to look like really strong and that they can kill everyone else and be the alpha male. Well, we don't need that anymore. And also, really, if you want me to be a traditional woman, bring me the tiger, right? Show me where the tiger is. If you're bringing me a tiger, maybe I'll be a traditional woman. Anyway, I'm just kidding. We don't want, tigers are endangered. We don't want the tigers. We want to keep the tigers alive. But I think we have done men a disservice as a society, even as women, right? We think that we want the strong guy who can beat up the other guys. The world is an unsafe place for women in general. And I think we think the way to tackle that is to have a stronger guy beating up the weaker guy so that we will be safe. But that's not how safety happens, as we know. We need everyone to stand in solidarity and back off, because women are able to, we don't need protection. We just need you to be able to not attack us. That's all.
Yes, not attack us. We are going to go into assault and attacking. But in your opinion, what kind of masculine characteristics you think that feminists can enjoy?
That's a great question. So I want someone who is emotionally available, right? A young man, should be able to recognize that that traditional concept of the stoic man who is aloof, etc., is not attractive anymore. So I think, raising my son to be emotionally tender, kind-hearted, listening to women, validating their things, or just staying quiet, right? Even being quiet and letting women speak, standing in solidarity with them, recognizing, believing women, making room for them, passing the mic if you're speaking, or if you have a platform, passing the mic to women, having equal space, or for some time maybe unequal space, making space for them. All of these things are not taking away from your masculinity. I think they make you more of a better human being, and also ask you to do a little bit better. Yes, and if you're called to do better, it's just going to be satisfying to you.
Absolutely. Here's the few things that the question comes in my mind. The first thing is that women are proactive about their own rights. So even when men do not pass the mic, they just get the mic. This is one thing that I'm seeing. The other one, I was just thinking, would it be ever possible? I'm from Iran, and I know that I'm coming from a patriarchal society, so I'm not passing any judgment. But would you think that this kind of book was even possible to be published in India? I'm just asking question. I don't know.
Yeah, it has been published in India. So now
Okay.
there's an Indian edition as well, and it's doing pretty well, which I'm really happy to say. Let me see if I.
Yoo-hoo! Yay! The
Yeah,
Hindi, yes.
here it is. This is the Indian edition
Oh,
of the book, and yeah, it's doing fairly well. And
can you show us the inside? I want to see. Is it in Indian
oh no, it's not.
writing?
It's not
Okay.
in Hindi. It's in English.
I
And
see.
I want it to be translated in
Mhm.
I wanted to
Mm-hmm,
in Hindi and other Indian languages. That would be great. And
mm-hmm,
there's an edition coming out in Brazil as well. So,
mm-hmm.
these three patriarchal cultures, the United States is also patriarchal in its own way, right? So,
Absolutely.
US, India, and Brazil, and I'm very satisfied. All three of us have had these massively patriarchal presidents recently, So I think it's been really important. So, and prime ministers in India. But I think, talking about like and cross culturally we've agreed, right, that so when we talk about women as well, we are also contributing to this thing of not passing the mic, like you said, because patriarchy makes us believe that we have to be in competition with each other, that there's not enough room for all of us to be successful, and that's not true. And once we start to claim our space, then we'll recognize actually there's enough room for all of us and for all our voices.
Yes, room for all of us and all of the voices. So yes, room for all of us and for all of the voices, but there are voices that you're leaving out and you're leaving behind. And that is in your intersectionality feminism, you're leaving behind Muslim women. Why?
Okay. That is something that I found after I had written the American version. So in the Indian version, I did include Muslim voices, and if I were able to write this book again, I would definitely include many more Muslim voices. I don't think. I do feel that that's something I regret, and I apologize for that. And I try to make up for it for sure in the Indian version. And of course, we can do much more. Having said that, I must say my novel that's coming out in about a year and a half is which is just sold, is actually it's a fictional account but very true. It's on Islamophobia and the white imagination. So this is something very front and center for me, and so that's why I'm kind of confused about why there are Muslim women's voices left out. Although I did quote from people like Sarah Ahmed and important Muslim feminists. So
Yes, yes, you did. About Muslim feminists and about basically featuring these people. Here's my question. We know that you and your son really enjoy going to movies and talking about movies and discussing the movies. It was at the beginning of the book, it was this movie, your son took you to Rise of the Planet Ape. And then it was a story in the book that you're explaining. I just love this story. Can you tell us the story?
yes, sure. So, this was, he was a teenager and he had started to go to the movies with his friends, so he was watching his movies with his friends. And there was this one movie he said, Mama, you have to watch The Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And I said, oh God, I don't like to watch movies about apes and, all these other things. And he said, no, 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 there's one scene in it that I think you will like this. So I said, okay, let's go watch the movie about the apes. And then, it's like 3/4 into the movie, there's this really important scene where, and it's kind of like a bit of a spoiler, but I'll say it anyway, that, there's a scene where the zookeeper who has trapped the main ape, Caesar, the zookeeper has locked him and the other apes up into their cages, and these apes have been given, have taken this serum which makes them super smart, and he comes to beat up this main ape called Caesar, and Caesar does this rebellion. And in that moment, for the audience, it's exhilarating when Caesar suddenly rises up to his biggest size and says, no. And that is so powerful, because to me, it was like about revolution. And that is what the film is trying to say as well. It's about resistance. It's about dissent. And my son, Gibran, he looked over at me watching that scene, and it was important for him to see my face seeing that resistance. And so it kind of like tied us together in this thought of resistance and dissent and speaking up and using your voice and rebelling against power. And it was very satisfying for me.
Excellent. Very satisfying to you. You're talking about your son and all of the experiences, and the book is about the son. I mean, raising a feminist son. Tell us about your son. How does he look like? Tell us about him from your point of view, a mother.
Oh, thank you for asking that. Well, he's the most handsome man in the world. So he's 26, and he's a very kind-hearted person, and his friends say that he does listen. His women friends say that he's very kind and listens to them, and also places himself in the same position, like his friend has said in the book, that she was surprised as a cisgender heterosexual male when she shared with him that she's self-conscious about her body. He said that he was also self-conscious about his body, and he decided not to go to this party where she was not wanting to go. It was a pajama party. Like, these kinds of things make me realize that he doesn't try to wear this badge of feminism. He actually doesn't like the performative aspect of dudes who like say, oh yeah, I'm a feminist. And he's gentle and kind and very intellectual. And the other thing that is lacking, that I'm still working on, is that he does mansplain. And so I keep working on that. And, he tells me, well, this is not mansplaining. This is me just being like, I just happen to know about this thing. And I say, no, this part is
What
not.
is mansplay?
Well, mansplaining. So it's Rebecca Solnit had written this book called Men Explain Things to Me. And then someone came up with the term to explain what she's talking about, or to capture what she's talking about. And it's like when men explain to you something that you are already an expert on, right? Like a man would come and say to you, Sarah, I should tell you, about podcasting that he may not know enough on, and say, well, you should know this about podcasting, right? So that's like, you're already an expert on it, you're already doing it. But when men try to explain, it's a very common phenomenon. I think all of us have experienced it. So sometimes my son will try and tell me about the publishing industry, about how to write a novel, and things like that. Yeah.
Maybe this is his own way of rebel against, revealing too much about him. Don't you think so?
Could be, absolutely. Although I think we're trying to protect his privacy, but yeah, it could be.
Yes, excellent. We were talking about movie. I wonder, do you have any all-time favorite feminist movie?
Yes, absolutely. There's an Indian movie, you must watch it. It's called Mirch Masala, and I've mentioned it in the book as well. It's Mirch Masala, Masala, and it's set in India. It's set during the British rule, but it's about this village of women. There's this young woman in the village. There's a sexual advance that this Indian British police officer for the British, he makes a sexual advance at her, and he wants her, and he tries to rape her, but she slaps him, and she runs into the spice factory where all women are working, and they close the door. And the whole story is about how women in the village sort of like slowly start to stand in solidarity. At first they resist and they tell her, get out of here, you're putting us all in danger. But they slowly start to reveal their own experiences. And so this is almost like a Me Too movie, years before the Me Too movement, right? So it's an excellent movie, and you will get subtitles and everything, but I highly recommend watching it.
Yes, we are going to put that in our website for people to learn about the movie and watch. So please stay put with me. You are listening to Peace Mindedly Podcast, a show featuring peaceful bridge makers. If you are watching us, you are on Peace Talk with Sarah and Goltun.com, two YouTube channels that we manage under the same platform. For this hour, we talk with Sonora Jha, author of How to Raise a Feminist Son, Motherhood, Masculinity, and the Making of My Family, published by, okay, I'm gonna have fun with this word, Sasquatch, I did it, Sasquatch book. So previously, Sonora published Foreign, a debut novel on true stories of farmers' suicide in contemporary India. You can find a wealth of information about her book and about the program on Goltun.com. Sonora is a professor of journalism at Seattle University. She teaches fiction and essay writing for Hugo House, for Hedgebrook Writers Retreat, and Seattle Public Library. We have other feminist guests in our show. Carol Hay, the author of How to Think Like a Feminist, explains the 3-4 waves of feminism in the United States and in Europe, and also she talks about intersectionality and many aspects of feminism. Also, we had Aisha Chaudhry, a Muslim feminist, who wrote a beautiful book talking about the intense masculine society in Pakistan, and how women in Pakistan are resisting against that. Her book is The Color of God. And also Rebecca Johnson, Nobel Peace Laureate and peace activist for nuclear disarmament. She was in parliament and a staunch advocate for women's rights and women's movement in England, in UK. For today's show, we are talking with Sonora Jha. Okay, Sonora, I am super excited to know. Here's my, we were talking about your son, and we are talking about how kind and how receptive he is towards women, towards his women friends. But here's the thing, how do women should treat feminist men so men do not feel that they've been taken advantage of?
That's a very unique question. So that men do not feel they've been taken advantage of. I wonder what that means, right? What would it mean for a man to feel that he's been taken advantage of, right? So are you thinking like in terms of money or emotion?
In terms of, so we said usually in our society, men are trained not to be open emotionally, not to be open through their feelings. And so then we have someone, my husband and I, we try to share and be open emotional. But I'm thinking, so if this is, with someone else, and we are dealing with a feminist man, and he is receptive toward women movement, toward pain that women suffer through assault, through many other circumstances, and then he's open, he is nice, he is kind, and yet how to deal with this kind of kindness that he doesn't feel that he's been taken advantage of? Because we do have some powerful women who just do anything for the gain of power, or for the gain of imbalancing the dynamic power within the relationship. So I wonder, what is your thoughts about that?
Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying now. So I think what you're talking about is really emotional abuse when someone does that kind of thing, right? And that is possible whether it is in a relationship with a brother or with a mother, father, etc. So I would hesitate to call it out as, oh, women are doing this to a feminist man, because I think if you are a feminist man and you stand in solidarity, you can still be doing that, and when something like this happens, you can put it down to an individual level, right? That this particular woman or this particular man is acting this way, and that is not because I am a feminist or because I've been too good or have been too kind, but it's because this person is emotionally abusive. And so just treat it as you would any other relationship, without thinking it's being taken advantage of because you're a feminist man. Just because you are being a better human being, if someone is taking advantage of you being a better human being, then that is emotional abuse, and you have to deal with it in the same way that you would if it were a man or a woman or something, which is to call it out and say, hey, I think you're being exploitative, and I would love to continue to be in solidarity. I totally get how you feel, but I also don't want to be exploited as a human being and as your partner, right? So I think that we don't see it as a response to feminism or as a way to, that you might be, it could be true of anyone. So women who've been really kind, etc., have been taken advantage of as well, right? So we have to just put it down to that individual who is doing something wrong, rather than your way of being that is inviting it, right?
Absolutely. So love, kindness, and peace is, I I think, the ultimate goal. We are in this era of pandemic and so much difficulties for so many people. So I wonder, in your opinion, you're talking about assault and you're talking about pain. I wonder, why do we need love, kindness, compassion to just resist against assault and pain? Or what is your opinion about how to really address assault and pain, assault against women?
Well, that's a huge question, right? And it's a huge issue to tackle. I think one for sure, teaching boys not to rape, rather than talking about women saying, don't wear this, don't go out at night, be with people, don't be alone, don't divorce your husband, you'll end up all alone and you might get taken advantage of or raped or whatever, right? All these fears that we put into women, we need to stop doing that. Or we can still say, yeah, it's unsafe to walk down that street, but what are you doing to make that a safe street to walk down? So it really starts with men. We have to teach men not to rape, teach boys not to assault, not to go beyond consent, right? Get consent from a woman at every stage of any sexual activity or sexual advance. If we teach them and we really take that seriously, I think that we will have fewer sexual assaults and we will have fewer of these things, because really sexual assaults happen because men are assaulting. So let's teach them not to assault and make it very, very important toward that, right? Of course, we'll always have someone who breaks away from that. The other thing is that women have to stand in solidarity with each other when it comes to this, and that comes from having an unconditional love for other women. Unconditional. Stop gossiping about other women. Stop judging other women. And that starts with yourself. And these past few years, especially in the pandemic, I've really had the chance to have unconditional love for myself. Just show like madly in love with myself. Because when I'm madly in love with myself, I'm madly in love with my sisters, other women, and I see they're all struggling. They're all trying to find their way in the world, and to sort of bring them along and say, honey, this is fine, and we have to ask our boys to do better, and your daughter should be able to ask my son to be better.
Yes, excellent point. So, can we explore this idea of to madly in love with ourselves? I am the same. I mean, I think I love myself so much, but how would you do that? How would you love yourself unconditionally?
I think a lot of it is, first of all, get therapy or anything else, something like that works for you, because a lot of us have to overcome the trauma and heal from things that have happened all our lives, right? And so you may think, oh, therapy is only for people who are a little bit crazy or they've got like deep mental health issues. I think every woman and really every human being can benefit from that, and I think it has really benefited me. I think we're not supposed to talk about these things in our communities, but I think it's really, really important. And
I don't want to interrupt you. Don't forget your point, but I think my husband is going to listen to this conversation really carefully because he's a psychiatrist and he believes that everyone needs a therapist.
Absolutely. I totally agree with him. And yes, I mean, I think that has really benefited me to get some of the voices that were telling me, whatever, I've achieved so much, but we keep like thinking that we're not good enough or we're not, there yet, etc. And to silence some of those voices, or to recognize, oh, I didn't see this as abusive. Now I see it, right? And to have that compassion for the child I was, the girl I was, love her, go back in time in your imagination, love that child, and then love yourself now. And it doesn't mean like, oh, I'm going to buy myself all these things and do tons of shopping. Although sometimes, yeah, sure, you can do that too. But it's also about really being compassionate with yourself and saying, rest for a while, take a nap, to go, there's this lovely thing called the nap ministry that everyone should follow. But just take a nap, take it easy, say no to people, recognize that you have reached the end of your emotional labor, etc. Those kinds of things become really important. Stand up for yourself, tell people, no, I think you're saying something that is very problematic, and bringing them along, and when you're acting from that authentic place of loving yourself, you sort of stand as an example for others to do the same thing. Yeah.
Excellent. So excellent. So we talked about how to love yourself and ways in which. How about, let's say that you have given the power of being a principal of education in the United States, and you are going to teach men of not to rape or not to or get consent. So how would you do that?
Yeah, I would definitely bring in some experts, right, who talk about sexual development of kids, and talk about sexuality and not just sex. And I say that in my book. I quote some psychologists that talk about how talking about sexuality can mean everything from, how love, loving relationships, all kinds of relationships, to being LGBTQ, to actual sex, to your development of your bodies, consent as a child, like not having to give hugs to grandparents or aunts and uncles and saying, no, I don't want to right now, I don't want to give that kiss. We keep telling our babies and our toddlers, oh, give uncle a kiss and everything. We don't have to do those kinds of things. So I think I would bring in those people, and also be this nonsense of telling girls that, oh, don't wear this or don't wear that because you'll distract the boys. I mean, luckily that there's a good amount of conversation around that, but for years we've told girls, don't wear this to school, don't wear your length of your skirt should be below your knees, etc. Those rules are just nonsense. The only thing now we need, sadly enough, to tell kids is wear your mask, but all other such rules should go flying out the window. And we really, really need to focus on boys and say, look, like, this has happened. One thing I say too in the book is that I talked to my son when he was a teenager. I talked to him about my sexual assaults and said that, just so you know, that this is the kind of masculinity that's out there, and I want you to work toward not being that to women. Don't be threatening and don't think you deserve something. And sure enough, he doesn't feel that way. He truly knows, what consent is, and how he's not entitled to some woman's body, or to sex from a girlfriend or woman.
Yes, yes, probably. I haven't encountered this because my daughter is only on fifth grade and going so forth. I don't know how in school they really teach sex education, but probably this should be one of the criteria in a curriculum for boys, to just teach them, these are the things that you need to do and to keep your body for yourself. And not, yeah, without consent, just don't do anything. Perfect. So here's my question. I think I asked my question in a different way, but I'm just curious to know your opinion because you are a feminist. There are amazing, excellent parts in feminism and feminist thoughts and theology. Doctrine. We also have a toxic parts in feminism that it's not really serving the larger picture. So I wonder, how would you teach your son to stay away, or to be a bit more protective towards not too pleasant parts of feminism?
Yes. So historically, especially in America, right, the term feminism was popularized by the feminist movement in the United States, and it was really a very strongly white women's feminism. And so I write in the book about how, white women's feminism doesn't necessarily fit the feminism for my son. That for him, I need to work with other people, work with LGBTQ communities, work with Black women or Black people, and other people of color, BIPOC people, and internationally look at, how is feminism serving other communities or not serving them or holding them back, right? So, here in the United States years ago, you had the example of Emmett Till, where a white woman said this Black boy, 14-year-old boy, whistled at her, or a cat called her or something, and then all these white men came and murdered that boy, and beat him up and threw him in a river. And later the woman said that it hadn't happened. And so the white woman has that power over boys of color even today, right? They can call the police on them, etc. So that's not that kind of feminism where it's dangerous, and it's been dangerous, and it has left out other women of color as well. So that kind of feminism is very problematic. And so certain kinds of toxicity in feminism can be really problematic to the feminist movement and to other men as well, and male allies. So, I've taught my son to also stand in solidarity with these intersections of people of color and, as a man of color himself, but also other people of color, and with the LGBTQ movement, and with, he's a socialist and he works with that as well to recognize income inequality and see where all those things intersect, so that one privileged group of feminists doesn't bring everyone else down.
Excellent. We are talking with Sonora Jha, author of How to Raise a Feminist Son, if I can show it here, Motherhood, Masculinity, and the Making of My Family. Sonora, I think I asked the questions that I was very, very curious. Do you think that I left anything behind, or would you like to add anything else?
No, I think you've asked some really terrific questions. So yeah, thank you.
Hooray, hooray to both of us. Yes, please stay put with me. Yes, this is a signature in our show that we ask our guests to share something meaningful about peace, kindness, compassion. And I know Sonora has something for us. She told me that she's reading from a passage. So we are all ears.
Lovely, thank you. So this is actually from the very end of my book, where I sum up everything. So I say, some of these things may seem like boys just being compassionate, empathetic, kind people. Why label it feminism, you may ask? We label it feminism because their compassion, empathy, and kindness is turned in its attention to the female condition, the condition of half of humanity. It is alert to misogyny, which turns the knife just a little more into the cultural wound. Our boys notice the turn of the knife. They name it. They see how they are complicit. They call it out. They amplify. They learn when to be quiet and sit down. They learn when to get out of the way. And they heave together to topple structures that give them an unfair advantage. Feminism is about love. If we teach our children this new way to love, we will see that love grow and take new forms that will make our hearts burst open at unexpected moments. And when this happens, we will slow down to feel the world turning, changing. When our boys do or say something that shows us that we have grown feminists, we will celebrate the heck out of these successes. We will shout our boys' feminism from the rooftops.
Beautiful, beautiful. For all moms and dads who are interested in raising kind, compassionate, full-hearted boys, How to Raise a Feminist Son is the book that they need to read. Here with Mateen, we enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much.
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, and Khoda Hafiz.